Good morning, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you for coming back. I always appreciate that. Today is September 21st, 2022. So today's big news is the intensive invasion of Tigray by Eritrean forces, plus with Ethiopian National Defense and uh, Fano militia. So all different media, BBC, Reuters, and other uh, media are, giving wide coverage, especially uh, especially the invasion on the Ethiopian Eritrean border. Eritrea is using heavy artillery and a large number of soldiers in a border area. So that's the big news for today. That's the big news. But according to Getachew Rada, the Tigrayan Defense Force are still resisting this invasion courageously, and the Eritreans and the Ethiopian forces are not successful so far. Let me read his tweet. Getachew Rada is a central committee member of Tigray region and also the spokesperson for TPLF. He said in his tweet, Eritrean forces have launched full-scale offensive in all fronts today, all the way from Tekeze through to Irab. Heavy fighting in May, Kuhul, Ziban, Gedena, Adi Awala, Rama, Serona, and Zalambasa. Abiy Ahmed's Eastern Command, significant elements of Northwestern Command, and 3 commando divisions have also been deployed alongside Eritrean forces. Thousands of Amara Special Forces as well as Fano have also joined the offensive. Eritrea is deploying its entire army as well as reservists. Our forces are heroically defending their positions. #Tigray will prevail. So that's a tweet from Getachew Rada, Tigray Region Central Command member, Central Committee member, plus the spokesperson for TPLF. So that's highlighting the situation in the northern part of Ethiopia. Reuters also has this news, plus BBC. Let me read what Reuters is saying. Tigrayan forces in Ethiopia say Eritrea launched offensive over border. Forces in Ethiopia's Tigray region said troops from neighboring Eritrea started a full-scale offensive on Tuesday, and heavy fighting was taking place in several areas along the border. 2 aid workers also reported intense fighting along the border, including shelling into a displaced persons camp on the outskirts of the village of Ziban Gedena. They didn't say whether Eritrean troops were on the ground in Tigray. If confirmed, the participation of Eritrean troops would mark an escalation in a conflict that was reignited last month after the collapse of a ceasefire in place since March. The U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Mike Hammer, said on Tuesday the United States was aware of Eritrean troops crossing into Ethiopia's Tigray region and condemned it. Eritrea had withdrawn its troops from most areas in Tigray last year after they supported the Ethiopian military in earlier phase of a war against Tigrayan forces which erupted in November 2020. Eritrea is deploying its entire army as well as reservists. Our forces are heroically defending their position. Getachew Reda, a spokesman for the Tigray People's Liberation Front (TPLF), said on Twitter. Eritrean Information Minister Yemane ገብረመስቀል didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Getachew said Ethiopian troops and special forces from the Amhara region to the south had also joined the offensive. Ethiopian government spokesperson Legese Tulu, military spokesperson Colonel Getnet Adane, and the Prime Minister's spokesperson Bilene Siyum didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Gzacho Mulune, spokesperson for the Amhara regional government, also didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. All of them, they don't want to respond. They want to keep it secret. The 2-year-old war in Tigray has already killed thousands, displaced millions, and created a humanitarian disaster in northern Ethiopia. On Saturday, the Canadian government warned that Eritrea was mobilizing armed forces due to the resumption of fighting in Tigray, where a ceasefire in place since March broke down on August 24. Eritrea's Yemane confirmed over the weekend that some reservists were called up, but said the government was not mobilizing the entire population. Ethiopian residents and aid workers previously reported that Eritrean troops had shelled the towns of Shiraro and Adigrat earlier this month. According to a United Nations document seen by Reuters on Monday, more than 200,000 people have fled the most recent fighting. Also on Monday, a United Nations Human Rights Commission said it had reasonable grounds to believe that Ethiopia's government was using starvation as a method of warfare. The Commission also said it had reasonable ground to believe that the war crimes had been committed by forces from both sides of the conflict. Spokespersons for the Ethiopian and Eritrean governments and for the Tigrayan forces didn't respond to requests for comment about the report. Ethiopia's government has previously called the Commission's investigation politically motivated. The Ethiopian government responded through the media, also through the ambassador. I have that statement. We didn't hear directly from the Prime Minister or the Deputy Prime Minister or from other senior officials, but we have a response from the ambassador in Qatar, I think, and also the propaganda against these UN experts also broadcasted on Fana television. So this is from U.S. Special Envoy Mike Hammer. It says U.S. tracking Eritrean troops movement across the border with Ethiopia, special envoy. The U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Mike Hammer, told media that the U.S. excuse me, sorry, the U.S. tracking recent Eritrean troop movement along the Ethiopian border. The envoy remark came shortly after Tigrayan authorities said the Eritrean forces have launched full-scale offenses in all fronts today, and the days after news report emerged that Eritrea was mobilizing its military reservists. We have been tracking Eritrean troops' movement across the border. They are extremely concerning, and we condemn them, Ambassador Mike Hammer said, adding that all external foreign actors should respect Ethiopia's sovereignty and territorial and avoid fueling the conflict. The U.S. has been very clear and said it repeatedly that we encourage those who are able to communicate directly with Asmara that this is extreme concern and must stop, he said, and added that the presence of Eritrean troops in Ethiopia only serves to complicate matters and inflame an already tragic situation. The U.S. has already said it condemns Eritrean re-entry into Ethiopia's renewed militarized hostilities between the Federal Defense Forces and the Tigray forces, which started on 24 August, becoming the first from the international community to confirm Eritrea's active engagement in the renewed hostilities. Eritrea's invasion of Ethiopia's Tigray regional state and its role in the war has been marked with reports of extreme atrocities, which both Ethiopia and Eritrea initially denied as complete lie. However, in May 2021, Ethiopia admitted the involvement of Eritrean troops in atrocities against civilians, confirming several reports by media and human rights organizations, including the state-backed Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, which said gave human rights violation and an attack against civilians in Aksum City, Tigray region. This was further corroborated in a new report by the International Commission of Human Rights experts on Ethiopia to the UN Human Rights Council, which concluded that there are reasonable grounds to believe that violations such as extrajudicial killings, rape, sexual violence, and starvation of the civilian population as a method of warfare have been committed in Ethiopia since 3rd November 2020, and said members of the Eritrean Defense Forces were among the perpetrators. So that is America's concern about Eritrean forces actively engaged in this invasion of the Tigray region. So this is a response on Ethiopian side, but it's given by the ambassador in a foreign country. It's not from the Addis Ababa. Ambassador Salam's report by International Commission of Human Rights on Ethiopia politically motivated. Say politically motivated. Talking about the UN experts report. The draft report by the International Commission of Human Rights experts on Ethiopia, ICHREE, is incomplete and politically motivated. Ethiopian ambassador, extraordinary and plenipotentiary of Qatar, Faisal Aliyi Ibrahim said, So he's an ambassador in Qatar, responding on behalf of Abiy Ahmed. Speaking with ENA today, Ambassador Faisal said the draft report issued by ICHREE on human rights violations in Ethiopia following the conflict in northern Ethiopia is pre-planned and politically motivated. The report didn't even consider the work done by the joint investigation of the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission and the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. He lamented. It should have complemented the recommendation by the joint investigation report and focused on the alleged human rights violation committed since then, he added. In the first place, it is incomplete and incoherent, he said, adding it does not address the issue at all. The report is incomplete in terms of addressing the atrocities committed by Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF terrorist group, including the killings, looting, and all the destruction of the schools, health facilities, and private properties as well. The TPLF committed such crimes by crossing into the neighboring Afar and Amhara regions, he said, adding that is why I said the report is pre-planned and politically motivated and hence cannot serve the purpose. That's a huge accusation of the United Nations expert report. Noting that the country has 120 million people with a big potential for development, he indicated that through homegrown economic reform agendas, Ethiopia is showing development in all areas of Human Development Index. We didn't see any development anyway. Stating that Ethiopians should understand the situation the country is facing over the last 2 or 3 years, Ambassador Faisal pointed out that there are external elements who want to seek weak Ethiopia. There are some countries who think their interest is assured if they have weak Ethiopia in the region. The root cause of the conflict that we are facing at this moment in Ethiopia is not domestic, but external. Okay, he's pushing the conflict to the external, not internal issue. Those external elements back and finance the conflict and even give diplomatic and media support to the TPLF, the ambassador added. That's why the international community is reluctant, he said. Ambassador Faisal further stated some countries want to discredit and delegitimize the mediation role of the African Union, noting those external elements want to take out the agenda to the United Nations. He's talking about the US. Ethiopians in the country and in the diaspora should learn from Libya, Syria, and Iraq, he underscored. He noted the war that destroyed Iraq under the pretext of weapons of mass destruction, where no weapons of mass destruction was found at the end. He is directly talking to the United States. And that's... We should learn from Libya and Syria and Iraq and the need to rally behind the government to save the unity and integrity of the country, as we have been doing for millennia, the ambassador stated. So that is Ethiopia's response through the ambassador of Qatar. and also trashing the United States and accusing the United States like taking or supporting TPLF, financing TPLF, and also giving media coverage for TPLF and taking the issue from African Union to United Nations. This is a bold and tough accusation and denying responsibilities. And they just keep playing until the time is right for them to face justice. Yes. That's why they are intensifying this war. If they won the war, control the Tigray region, everything will be eliminated. All the accusation of rape, genocide, and United Nations investigation will be done. That's why the calculation. That's why Eritrean forces, Abiy Ahmed forces, Amara forces are intensifying to finish the Tigray region and to force the Tigray people to disarm. Then they will be free from all the crimes they committed in the past 2 years plus. That's their dream. We'll see. This is about this last one. Uganda confirming fresh outbreak of Ebola virus. A 24-year-old man infected with Ebola has died in central Uganda in a fresh outbreak confirmed by health officials. The health minister has told journalists that the victim had exhibited symptoms before succumbing to the disease. He was a resident of Nigabano village in Mubende district, about 91 miles from the capital Kampala. The case of the relatively rare Sudan strain was confirmed by the Uganda Virus Research Institute, the World Health Organization said in a statement. It says 8 people with suspected symptoms are receiving medical care, and that is sending staff to the affected area. The East African country last reported an outbreak of the strain in 2012. Thanks to its Ugandan experts, action has been taken to quickly to detect the virus, and we can bank on this knowledge to halt the spread of infections, said Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, WHO Regional Director for Africa. So that's about Ebola, maybe coming back in Uganda. Credit BBC. Okay, that's enough for reading. Couple of videos, then finish up today's presentation. Thank you again. This is also about Eritrean involvement.
Tigrayan authorities say Eritrea has launched a full-scale offensive along the country's border with northern Ethiopia in what appears to be an escalation of last month's renewal of fighting. The Eritreans are fighting alongside Ethiopian federal forces, including commando units as well as allied militia, Tigray spokesperson Getachew Reda said Tuesday. The U.S. envoy to the Horn of Africa told reporters Tuesday that Washington has been tracking Eritrean troops' movement across the border, and Mike Amma condemned the movement of the Eritrean soldiers in northern Ethiopia. The full-blown entry of Eritrea into Tigray war looks set to complicate any peace efforts between Tigrayan leaders and Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who mended ties with Eritrea as soon as he rose to power in 2018.
Let's bring in William Davison, who is a senior analyst on Ethiopia from the International Crisis Group. He joins me live now from London. William, I'd like to get your reaction first to this report. Are you surprised by what's in it or not surprised?
Not at all surprised. These findings essentially reiterate those of the media, other international human rights entities, Amnesty and Human Rights Watch. But it is a very limited investigation at this stage. They've only really looked into 3 major incidents. And I think importantly, the UN experts have concluded that the restrictions on aid and services to Tigray amount to an illegal use of starvation as a weapon of war here.
Now that this report has come out, do you think it will make any difference, or is this the reality for as long as the fighting continues?
Depends what you mean, make a difference. I mean, I think unfortunately the this sort of international procedure actually changing the events on the ground, changing the positions of the commanders and leaders is highly unlikely. Of course, in theory, this is the beginnings of a process of an international process of accountability for those responsible for these crimes. So could it lead to some shift in the calculations because of that? That's possible, but with the momentum to war just increasing every day, really, it's very unlikely to impact that in the short term.
What are the risks for the civilian population as this conflict continues and escalates and spreads beyond Tigray to other parts of the country and possibly even beyond its borders?
They're the same risks that the civilians have suffered so far. There have been direct attacks on civilians, killings, and sexual violence in Tigray and outside because of the restrictions placed upon Tigray. Obviously, there's been very serious attendant humanitarian consequences for millions of people. So obviously, if the conflict continues to escalate and spreads further, then civilians elsewhere will face similar hardship.
All right, we'll leave it there. William Davison joining us from London. William, thank you for your time.
One more video.
Plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order.
So the United Nations 77th General Assembly started in New York, and
this ship is a
Ethiopia is represented by Denek Mekon.
When we act together.
Abiy is not coming.
Ukrainian grain destined for the people of the Horn of Africa, millions of whom are on the edge of famine. The Black Sea Grain Initiative has opened the pathway for the safe navigation of dozens of ships filled with much-needed food supplies. But each ship is also carrying one of today's rarest commodities, hope. I stand ready to support member states to identify transformative, impact-oriented, systemic, and sustainable solutions.
Gender-based and sexual violence seems to be an intrinsic part of our party culture, if I may say so. And this is something that we need to change. This is not normal. This shouldn't be like this.
We must redouble our efforts for gender equality. We must increase women's leadership. And we must continue to push for spaces that amplify the voices of women. We know that gender-equal societies are more peaceful and more prosperous.
We need gender champions at all levels, especially at the grassroots level, and we can lead by example.
I am happy that we can be here today together and to spread this message that it is feasible and it's worth doing it. Because if we give up on having children, we won't be able to raise our daughters the way that we would like to show them it is possible. We won't have our daughters who can fulfill what we started.
There we go. So thank you to those media for broadcasting different issues. So that's all I have for today. So the next 24-48 hours is a decisive time frame for TDF to thwart this invasion by Eritrean forces, plus by all militia from all regions, plus Fano, plus the Ethiopian National Defense Force. This is really it's a very tough job for TDF. So far, they are doing good. So the next 24, 48 hours, we have to follow it very seriously. I hope they will survive the invasion. And this is an invasion to conceal the crimes committed in Tigray. Ethiopians and Eritrean forces and the Fano militia and other militias from different regions involved in a war crime. And UN is ready, already started releasing some report. They are ready to investigate deeply to make those individuals accountable. So the Eritreans and these forces from Ethiopia, they don't want that to happen. They want to crush the Tigray region and control the region by any means. They tried before, they failed. You see how many soldiers lined up marching in Tigray region capital, you see. And you see on different video, those young generations and even the high-ranking military officials. Despite all this, the defeat, they reorganized and trying again. If they got defeated this time, it might take another time for them to buy weapons to train these soldiers at least for a month, and they will not stop. They don't care about the bloodshed. They don't care because their kids are not dying. Abiy Ahmed kids are safe. Eritrean kids are safe. Eritrean president's kids and those Prosperity Party officials' kids are enjoying, relaxing somewhere. But those children from poor family are dying. That's why they don't care. They don't care. They don't feel it. They don't feel it. So that's why they keep waging this bloody war, despite all displacement and days of civilians and plus the destruction of the country. They don't care. And the United Nations, US, European Union, they just keep warning them. But so far, limited action is taken through, AGOA restriction plus some visa restrictions. These are not deterrent to Abiy Ahmed and Eritrean forces. Eritrean forces are also ignoring US call, European call. Abiy Ahmed is also ignoring because they know no action through the United Nations, or the only action is if US and the European Union determined to do something, then they will scare. Then they will abide by international rules. So yeah, we just pay attention what will be the next 24 hours, 48 hours bring to the Tigray region. I hope they will survive and defend their people, and those invaders will be repelled. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be back with other news and comment. So long and be safe, everyone.